maximum, do we?
Talk to Jim about that. That's his favorite thing.
What?
The lot characterization number. And the maximum allowable in a lot. Right, and that's part of the lot characterization number.
Right, but it doesn't really, it's not affected by the size of the lot, is that what you're wondering?
Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about it.
It would still work, it doesn't depend on the size of the lot.
Okay.
Now, the smaller the lot you have, the smaller the house you can have.
Right.
You know, so it actually kind of works with it.
All right, we're ready to begin. Please note that this meeting is being made available to the public through an audio recording, which will be used to ensure an accurate record of proceedings produced in the minutes of the meeting. All comments made in open session will be recorded. PAC TV is providing the service live on Comcast Xfinity Government Access Channel 9. Those without cable, visit YouTube for live streaming. Okay, we've got everyone here today. No one's participating remotely. So first on the agenda is public hearing number SP 5-24, The Towers LLC, doing business as The Towers BTS of Massachusetts and Selco Partnership, doing business as Verizon Wireless. The applicant proposes to construct and operate a wireless facility that Verizon Wireless will use, consisting of a 150-foot tall monopole tower supporting its antenna and radio equipment, with additional support equipment on the ground adjacent to the tower. The tower and ground component are designed to allow co-location by other wireless carriers as well. The monopole tower and Verizon Wireless ground equipment will be within a 41-foot by 68-foot fenced enclosure on the property. The property is located at 720 Washington Street, Pembroke, Mass, in Business B and Residential District A, as shown on Assessor's Map F9, Lot 9A1. All right, so this is a public hearing, so just some ground rules on public hearings. We're going to hear from the applicant first, who will make a presentation. Then we will hear from the board's peer review of the project. During this time, the board can ask questions. We will leave public comment to the end of those presentations. Please listen carefully to the presentations. Many of your questions may be answered during them. All right, so who do we have here representing Selco?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this thing on?
Yeah, it's on, yes.
I
Thank
shouldn't
you
have pushed
for
that then.
speaking into it. We appreciate it.
Thank you. This is Michael Gimo of Robinson & Cole, representing the applicants on this application. The applicants are Verizon Wireless as the wireless provider, and the Towers LLC, doing business as the Towers BTS of Massachusetts, which is the infrastructure provider, the company that will actually be managing and developing the tower. As you mentioned, this is an application at 720 Washington Street. The proposal is to put a 150-foot tall monopole behind the existing manufacturing business building there, in an area that is pretty close to the building and the parking area. The access will be along the existing driveway and then through the back area behind the building. The use at this point would be for Verizon Wireless, but it would be available for co-locating other wireless carriers if they require service in that area. The purpose is to improve wireless coverage in that part of town, to connect to other sites that are already in Pembroke and surrounding towns, and in particular to improve service along some of the main roads in town. And unfortunately, our radio frequency consultant was not able to make it to the hearing. You have a report, however, from C-Squared Systems, and I'm just going to refer to that report a little bit to describe what the service is, what service is being proposed. The purpose of this site principally is to address lack of reliable service in surrounding roads, including Route 53, Route 14, a stretch of Route 14, and Taylor Street, all of which are busy roads in the surrounding area. This is a well-located site to provide service to those facilities. And in that report, if you see the report by Keith Valente, there are maps in the back that show you the existing coverage gap and how that gap would be filled in by this site, both at the 700 megahertz frequency and at the 2100 megahertz frequency. And the facility is a standard monopole tower with 9 antennas. It will have a base station with cabinets next to the pole, within a fenced enclosure, a generator for emergency backup only. And that's the gist of it. It is a pretty typical wireless installation. We did walk through in our application all the standards under your site plan bylaw. You don't have in Pembroke any kind of specific wireless bylaw. And so we addressed the standards in the site plan bylaw. I know your peer reviewer has commented on that. I'm going to go through just, let's see, I'm going to go through just briefly some of the points that we made in that application. First, we requested some waivers. One of my colleagues came down here and spoke to you about those waivers a couple of months ago, and we've formally requested them in this application. That would be a waiver from the requirement for a traffic impact study because this site doesn't generate traffic. A request to waive the landscaping plan requirement given the small footprint of this area and its location and the natural vegetation that's around it. The landscaping plan does not seem necessary for this type of a use. A waiver on the scale requirement for the reasons stated. The scale of these plans as presented is an appropriate scale based on the size of the site and what we're trying to show, and it's legible and understandable. So we'd respectfully ask if we could have the scales waived to allow the ones that have been presented to you on the plan set. A photometric plan requirement. This is not going to have any lighting. There will be a downward oriented light that is only used when and if the rare occasion a technician might come onto site. This time of year in the evening it would be dark. But typically the maintenance for these sites nowadays is done remotely. Everything is monitored remotely, and if something needs to be fixed, it can generally be fixed remotely. And then there are routine maintenance visits that would be scheduled, more often than not, it would be scheduled daytime hours. It's not going to be overnight. So there's not really going to be any lighting needed for this. And then you have a sign plan requirement, and this is not a use that involves signs other than a small no trespassing sign and some warning signs that are required by law. There's also a request in here for a waiver to allow cuts greater than 4 feet. Your regulations limit cuts to 4 feet. The site plans show proposed temporary cuts between 4 and 5 feet for the installation of the utilities and the tower foundation, and then they'll be filled. And we've requested a waiver from the development impact statement requirement because the facility does not implicate any of the thresholds in your site plan regulations for that kind of a statement. It's not going to be served by any water, sewer, septic. It's not going to discharge any hazardous waste. It's going to meet applicable requirements for the propane storage, and it won't create any emission of noise or gas. It's not going to create a significant increase in stormwater flow. We're going to need to go to the Conservation Commission in any case, and we also have a stormwater management facility there designed as part of the facility that will manage the stormwater runoff. And if you have questions about that, our engineer who designed that is here. The location's in an area that's got, it's a wooded area. It's going to have some vegetation removal in the immediate vicinity, but no large-scale tree cutting or anything like that. and there's adequate access to the tower and the ground-mounted equipment over the existing driveway and the proposed extension of that driveway back to the site location. And we've gone through on the site plan review criteria. We've also gone through and addressed those. A lot of it I've covered in that discussion before, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have during the course of the meeting. Jesse, if you show the site plan, maybe explain the various components of the site, and then give them a look at the elevation. That would be helpful.
Okay, so is he going to speak from there?
He can come over here, I guess. I can point to stuff while he talks.
Either way, we'll need to have a microphone.
Oh, okay, you can give me that? Okay, that's great.
So as Attorney Giammo said, this is a parcel here. It's 720 Washington Street. It's an L-shaped parcel. We're about 850 feet north of Washington and Congress Street. There's an existing industrial building on the lot. We're proposing to be in the rear, sort of around the corner in that L-shaped piece behind, I believe that's Cherry Hill Pools there. So we'll be in the back there. We're equidistant off the property line, north and south, about 150 feet, about 164 feet off the southern line. If we zoom into this area here, you can see here, as the attorney said, we're utilizing, there's an existing paved driveway and parking area to about this location. And then from here, we have about 225 feet of a gravel driveway and turnaround, where our compound will be here. It's about a 45 by 70 lease area. Within that's the tower. And there's a concrete pad that has cabinets at the base, and there's a fence surrounding it. If we drill down a little further and we zoom in a little more, it's kind of a split here. North is this way. I kind of rotated it a little bit to get it. But you can see here, this is the 45 by 70 compound. It's got a fence around it. The monopole is in the middle, 150 feet. You can see here, it's what they call it's a galvanized polygonal monopole. And the equipment that Verizon uses to propagate the signal is located at the top. And at the base on these pads are small refrigerator-sized cabinets that have the radio and power equipment in it. It's a good sheet to show. This here represents a profile of the driveway. This gives you an indication of it's a pretty flat area. We don't have large cuts or fills. We are filling a little bit so that we can put a drainage system in. Basically, the compound itself is stone, and in it it's basically disconnected impervious area, so they're probably pads that are roughly like 10 by 13, something like that, that are concrete, but not the whole thing's impervious, so it's ends up being equivalent to basically a single family at full build out. Just with Verizon's equipment, it's actually much lower than a normal house, but just to give you an idea. There's an existing, on the north side of the property, there's an existing overhead power line. We're proposing to tie into that and then go underground southernly from that point to the corner of the compound. That'll feed the telco and power to the facility. And as was stated, there's a propane-powered backup generator that only operates in the event of a power outage, storm event or something where there's power's down in the town, and for 911 purposes, the facility will still be active. We have a turnaround area here. Most of the flow is heading in this direction. We have a sediment trap and a small detention basin to deal with any of the runoff that's created here. And again, one of the comments was to submit the calculations that we did for that, and we can certainly do so. A little bit more about Verizon's equipment. As was stated, it consists of both ground-based equipment, which were these kind of refrigerator-sized cabinets, basically a power panel, a telco box, the generator. There's what's called an ice bridge. Basically, this is a conduit to be able to hang some of the RF cabling that we need to go from the cabinets up the pole. And again, just for an idea, the cabinets, there's 2 cabinets proposed, they're refrigerator sized, and we have a 6-foot fence, so it really, you can't really see a lot of that from outside the compound. We're proposing like a wood stockade fence here, so it'd be opaque, and you wouldn't really be able to get a good look at that. There is a small canopy that goes over the top. Basically, it's just a kind of a lean-to structure that keeps snow and water off the equipment. It's pretty much an overview. You have any questions?
Yeah, just real quick, just looking at the overall area that's disturbed here. Do you really need all that for drainage, given that it's gravel? Could you not infiltrate it? It seems like 2/3 of the area you're disturbing is for drainage.
Yeah.
You're taking down a lot of trees, but I don't see a reason you need to do
The
that.
problem is here, I would agree with you. Problem is we're within jurisdiction of the, of wetlands, so we have to go through all those 10 stormwater standards like you would for a large commercial development. And as much as we can use low impact development, there's just no way without some of these structures to meet all of those 10 standards. If it was outside of this, I mean, we could ask you some waivers for some of that. You know, there was a peer review too, they might be able to shed some more light on that, but unfortunately, because I have to meet those standards, the only way I can really do that is with this. I'd prefer not to, but it's just,
It just seems backwards thinking. You're destroying a ton of environment to protect the environment unnecessarily.
understood. Problem is, you know, you got a driveway that we're adding, we have, you know, it's not necessarily the compound, but some of this stuff so that you can get a vehicle to turn around here. All that changes the ground, that's sort of grass and woods now to, well, half of it's grass and sort of half of it's wood. And when you make those changes, and you look at the calculations over a small area, it shows a change. In order to mitigate for that change and meet those 10 standards, you got some, you know, it's not just meeting pre and post, you have, you know, erosion and sedimentation control, you know, things, you have to treat for impervious. So by the time you hit all of those items, you end up, unfortunately, with a little more disturbance to be able to do that.
So is there
I
any,
just think with all the land in town, how come we have to put something in the wetlands buffer? It's just,
is there any stormwater management for the existing building that can be tied into for this, so that there's not as much?
There is
disturbance?
catch basins and things, but they just basically head out to the street. There's no kind of mitigation there. I believe it was done
Great.
before that kind of stuff was done. Otherwise, you're correct, we could look into that, but from what I've seen, there are some catch basins and some drainage, but there's really no subsurface or any other kind of mitigation there that we could tie into and to sort of address.
Any other questions from the board? I have one about elevations. So the elevations here compared to the abutting properties and sight lines and view,
It's a pretty flat site. We're probably filling a couple of feet, but it actually kind of heads downhill here, so I think we're going to be pretty, if you look at the overall elevation of things. I think the ground equipment anyway is pretty comparable to what's around it in the back here. You know, we're actually a little bit lower than the building. This is probably, the finished floor of this is higher than we are. You know, again, we're heading downhill, we're filling a little bit, but, you know, we're not appreciably cutting or filling to put the site in.
So is it visible, where is it going to be visible to? Can you see it from Taylor Street? Congress?
I'm not sure on that.
So Taylor Street would be to the east of this site, right?
Yeah, I think
Behind
you're referring to the street behind here at
Yeah.
Taylor.
Yeah,
There is a pretty good tree cover in there, and that's helpful. You know, when you're going through a corridor of trees, even though it's taller, your vantage point, if you're driving or at homes, is you're not gonna be able to see through that. I guess you could see that best.
Will there be any trees left between that existing parking lot?
Yes. Yes.
Because it
So
looks
you-
like shadows
You can
mostly
see
there,
here, yeah.
so.
So this is the area that's
Yeah.
treated, you can see up here, and Taylor Street's way off in this direction here. So we're only clearing this area here, so there's gonna be trees, you know, to the east, to the south, and between us and Cherry Hill Pools.
So there won't be any trees left between the parking lot to the north?
There's no trees there now.
yeah.
That's just shadows.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
and you can't cut anything in the wetlands, so
Correct.
you're gonna have to keep
Yes.
that, it's gonna be very dense there, because you're only about 50 feet from the wetland line.
Yeah, we're between 25 and 50 from the line, yes.
Okay. And about how many trees do you think, if you were to show us just where the trees would be removed? Just gives us an idea of
Yeah.
how much will be left that will.
So I would say, if you could trace my finger, there'd be an area like this that's removed.
Okay.
I would say a third of the site development is already cleared, so about 2/3. I think we came up with, I want to say 16 or 17,000 square feet, so a little over a third of an acre. Total disturbance is 0.6 or 0.7 acre. I think it's 0.64, 0.65. You might have rounded up in the application to say 0.7. Again, this was the area that made the most sense to tuck it behind, so you can't see the street, and from these other vantage points. And it was also the, you know, the area that was available to lease.
So you're only expecting it to be partially visible from Washington Street?
It's difficult for me to answer that. I would
Those
say that the
buildings are
ground
probably not-
equipment would be very difficult to see from
Yeah,
that street.
from-
But, you know, obviously,
Coming-
the trees, I think
Yeah.
there's, what's good here is a lot of these are pretty tall pines, 60, 70 feet, but the tower is 150 feet, so, and it needs to be that. You need to be over the trees because it's a line of sight technology. If you have trees in between your signal and in your phone, it doesn't work well, so. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Attorney General.
No, I mean, that's true. There's also topography concerns in terms of, you know, beyond the trees, just making sure the signal can get out over
That's part of what
where
those
where the
maps
ground
do.
rises. And, yeah,
The
and
maps you see
that's
all
shown
the
in
funky
that
colors
article.
on is the
Yeah, I don't
antennas
think we got
that.
that.
No, we
Yeah,
don't
I
have
don't
that.
have the radio
Yeah.
frequency report.
Oh, you didn't?
No, we do not
It
have
was
a-
submitted. I don't know what happened to it, but,
Everything that was
okay.
submitted is there.
Well, if we didn't submit it, then I apologize.
Okay.
Well, basically what that's telling us is that you can't adjust the height of the tower, right? That height of the tower is based on those frequencies.
It's based on propagation, right? And
Right.
if the tower height were reduced, it would cover appreciably less
Right.
area.
Okay,
Some of the things they're trying to do with this tower, for example, reach a stretch of Route 14 that's a little distance from here, but it's also a coverage gap, and this will cover it at that height.
Right.
But with reduction, it doesn't really get that far, so
gotcha.
that's the reason for that.
Any other questions from the board?
So how many, so we're talking about a monopole that's gonna be kind of like an off-white, like the same as up at Circle Furniture, the last one, correct?
I'm not familiar with what that looks like. What we're proposing here now is a galvanized, but it could be painted if that's something you're interested in.
The one,
That's an internal antenna one, though.
Yes.
That was in the historic district, so that
Yes.
ended up being internally mounted antennas.
Yeah, so they call that
Well,
like
that's what I'm
a,
getting, that's my next question.
Okay.
Is the antennas on it, like, are they gonna be internal, are they gonna be external?
they're going to be external.
How many tiers?
Well, Verizon's only one tier,
How
but
many
it,
tiers are you asking for?
one right now.
But it is available for co-location, so to your point, if AT&T came along or T-Mobile came along and they needed a slot on that tower,
You've shown at least 4, right?
Well, we're just
there's
showing the
there's space on
ability
the
to
ground for
co-locate.
4,
Yeah.
but I think at this point,
So 4 going all the way around?
Well,
no.
So what's proposed now is just the top. What we're trying to indicate in this lighter color is that if other carriers come along and if they have to come before you for permitting, then they would do so. But the idea of having a structure that's co-locatable, so you don't get, a lot of poles around, right? You don't want,
So each array would be 10 feet
All right.
below the next one up.
but we're only proposing one array of 9 antennas at this point.
But it would accommodate 4.
It would accommodate if other carriers come, you wouldn't need to add a pole next to it or down the street. You could, carriers could utilize this same structure.
Okay. And does this site accommodate the type of pole that was put in North Pembroke, where the antennas are on the inside?
That's more of an RF question. My understanding is no, and attorney can help me, but it has to do with the newer technologies. So all the newer technologies, like, so you can use your phone to stream and all that, requires, 4 and 5G. And those technologies are very impeded by putting even that kind of fiberglass material between it. So I think they're asking here for exposed antennas, because that provides the best, longest coverage to be able to fill the gap.
So is there a way to get an answer of, like, what the difference would be with the antennas internal versus external?
We can ask that,
Because I
yes.
think, when did the pole go in Circle Furniture?
Just over a year ago.
Just over a year. I mean, so it's not, like, I'm not comparing a 10-year-old pole to something brand new. It was within a year, or just over a year.
Right. Understood.
Because, so, where this is going on this piece of property backs up, there is commercial on both sides of buildings that cover it well from Washington Street, but does back up to residential properties as well, which in turn need the cell phone coverage service, and I understand that. But maybe making something that's both aesthetically pleasing and gets the coverage would be a nice compromise.
Well, we have in the past done a crane test, and we did the crane test at Circle Furniture, right?
Yeah.
And there have been balloon tests done.
And we're willing to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it may be helpful, at least letting people know who are the abutters, what they can plan on seeing.
Yeah, to your point, perhaps it's not visible at all. from
Perhaps it's
television.
not.
Maybe it
right.
is, maybe it's not, but that could tell you. So that's a good
Well, when I
idea.
drive by the one at Circle Furniture, every time I drive by it, I think of how good that looks. Like, I mean, it is right in the middle of an area that, there was such concern that it wasn't gonna look good. And it came out so well that I feel like it should be a standard. Like, it's just, it really looks good. It's not distracting, but it serves its purpose.
Each carrier has a little bit different needs too, and how they fill their gap and what technologies they use. So there's a lot that goes into it, but I'm sure that question can be asked in
Too.
the RF.
That was
That is
also
Verizon.
Verizon.
Yeah, that was a Verizon
Yeah.
pole. I mean, I worked on that one with this board as well, and that was driven by the historic district.
Yeah.
So,
To me, it's also kind of a public safety issue, because no one's relying on anything but cell phones anymore. And the coverage is bad in that area.
It is, it needs to be.
Yeah.
So on balance, I'd go for letting them put the better equipment in there versus having it be impeded.
Well, the one in North Pembroke, I know we reduced the height by, I think, 10 feet, and I think this is higher. So my understanding, the height has something to do with how far the radio frequency goes.
yes,
as
and
well.
it's also, the height matches what coverage objective they're trying
Right.
to get with that tower, and I don't recall the details
Yeah.
of the one in North Pembroke, but it did not need to be as tall accomplish what it was supposed to do.
Okay.
And then you're right, there was I think it did drop 10 feet or something. And again, they made a judgment that that would still give them enough coverage to
Right.
to proceed with that project. And, you know, I am assuming this might be continued, and if it is, we would bring the RF engineer the next time, and he's going to have technical answers to a lot of these questions.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
I'm glad you remembered everything from the last one. That was helpful. Deb, did you want to come up and do just a brief review of your findings on the peer review to date?
It's going to be pretty brief.
That's fine.
So Deb Keller with Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. So we did review the site plans submitted and supplemental documents. We only had, again, we reviewed the waiver request list, which was consistent with previous cell towers permitted through the board. The biggest issue that I have is just looking at stormwater and seeing that stormwater report, not only for this board, but also they'll have to do it for conservation and trying to get consistency between the boards.
Yeah, how far have you gotten on the stormwater report?
We've done calculations now, so we don't have it in a submittable format, so if that's
We-
what you're looking for, something we'll have to do.
Okay,
We know we have to do it for Conscom.
okay, because typically we do the stormwater review here.
Okay.
So if we do continue, and the timing is good, you could present it here, and we would do the peer review of the stormwater here, and then you could use that for the Concom.
Okay.
And I think my only last comment thus far until we see the stormwater was that if this does get approved, the plans would have to be adjusted to have recording information provided on them. So at this point, that's all I got until we see the stormwater. I had one question after the discussion here and a thought, and I'm sure you have an answer to this, is that we've been talking about the buffers and the tree clearing. Is there any chance of sliding it just slightly to the north so that you're at least out of the 50-foot buffer to the wetland and reducing the amount of trees that are cleared?
I think that's a landlord question, probably.
No.
We would have to, we were directed to this location on this property,
Sure.
but we can certainly bring that up.
I would almost guess that, I mean, I'm not going to say, but it might come up at conservation,
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, and I was going to say, also conservation may require specific plantings to go in as well in the buffer area and potentially in your retention basins or around them. So that may affect your waiver for landscaping type stuff if that's just a consideration. I know if I was on the conservation, I would be asking. Yeah, I would, because I'm a real stickler with that. You rip stuff out of the buffer, you should put it back, essentially.
if it's undisturbed, yeah, maybe. Okay, so any other questions for Deb? No? And we do have some time for some public comment. Is there anyone here who wish to come up and speak to this project while we're in an open public hearing? Come on up, give us your name and your address.
Hello, good evening. My name is Denise Moraski. I live on Taylor Street. I have an 18-acre horse farm that's agricultural that abuts this
And I
property.
would just want to ask you one thing. Make sure you direct your questions to us,
Okay,
okay? And we can direct the question to the applicant.
okay.
All right.
I'd really like to see where this gap in cell phone coverage is. I feel like it's a Duxbury problem. And it's very, like, I think it's 70 feet above sea level where they want to put it. It's not even high. And I have AI now. It's very useful. And there are pages and pages and pages about how detrimental 5G is to your health. This is a residential area. There's lots of families. Taylor Street, Beverly Way, Marley Mac, Edgewater, they're all just families, so I'm not really sure why this isn't going in an industrial area. And also, I want to know why, like, what is the benefit to the people of Pembroke? Will we make money off it, or will just the landowner make money off it? And, you know, why can't we put it on the water tower, which already has cell phone communications on it? That is on High Street and Washington Street. And there's also the old fire station, which is on the corner of 53 and 139, and where the new public safety building's going to go. I mean, then Pembroke could make money. So I just think it's a really bad location. And again, I just ask everyone, this new AI is amazing. They give you so much information. 5G is very detrimental to your cellular function in your body. The EMFs are 50 times higher than 1 to 4G. It's new technology. There's not a lot of research on it. So I implore you to be very careful about putting it in neighborhoods. And also, it's very wet back there. I own it. It's very fragile. I don't see why it has to go close to the wetlands. And I think those are all my concerns. The FCC says it's detrimental to all living organisms. That's your bats, that's your birds, that's the deer that live back there, that's everything, so.
Okay, so you had a number of questions there. One was on why that location is important. Did you want to, I mean, I think that's been already
Well, they're
answered.
saying 14. 14 is Duxbury. The
Well-
Duxbury line is right there.
Right, but,
This is also 14 in Pembroke. There's I guess, a gap to some extent, but it's mostly Washington Street on 53. It does go into Duxbury. It also goes into Pembroke and covers a area of Pembroke.
Will it cover the, like, Edgewater type neighborhood? I know the cell phone coverage isn't great in
And I'm not 100% sure what that's what it
there.
is.
It's just further
Just
north
further north.
on 53,
On 50.
on Washington Street.
On Washington
On
Street.
the
Oh, I see
eastbound side.
Edgewater Drive, yes. Yes, that on these propagation maps is shown as being covered, Edgewater, Juniper Lane, Sunset Way. And now spotty coverage or no coverage in that area.
I know if I go to, one of my friends lives at Herringbrook condominiums, and I get an X through my service when I'm there. I can't get a call at all. Like, only if I turn on to her Wi-Fi and log in, I can't.
But there are other places to put it that have existing. I mean, they just want, Verizon wants it, and then, you know, then all the other carriers, Verizon's going to make a ton of money, so.
well, this was the
Thank you.
location that's before us, so,
Right, thank you.
all right.
My name is John Marshall. I live on Taylor Street. I actually back up to Denise's property where our horse farm is. So our horse farm sits behind my property, and then the area of concern is behind that. I don't really have questions other than to say, as of right now, when I look out in my backyard, because I can see through Denise's farm, I can see all those buildings over there already. I can see the back of Cherry Hill Pools. I can see the back of Sunrise Systems. Okay? So you're talking about taking more trees down, which is going to make them more visible. I agree with Denise on the health concerns, but I also look at property value for us that all live on that road. I've lived off of Marley Mac I lived on Marley Mac for 12 years. I've been on Taylor Street now for 6. I've never had an issue with both Verizon, now I'm on Xfinity, with service. Do I get a dead spot in my house? Maybe, yeah, so I move. You're talking about erecting 150-foot, we've got 80-foot pine trees. So you're doubling the height of that, so now I'm going to look out my window, instead of looking at Denise's horses, I'm going to look at a big tower. And I think there's better spots in Pembroke to put it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yes,
That's how I make my living. I do like trail rides in my forest. That's just how I make my living. And I've been there 26 years.
gotcha.
Thank you.
All right. So what's the pleasure of the board with a balloon test or something like that in the stormwater report? Do we feel that we want to require the stormwater report here at planning board, get the peer review through Merrill?
Yes.
I think that would be the best way to do it. Yeah.
Or do you guys wanna see if you can move stuff around before you do all that?
Yeah, we can talk to the landlord to see what's possible.
Okay, so then you're gonna take a look at maybe moving it up a couple of feet away from the resource area?
No, I'm going to defer to Christina as the real estate person.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, 'cause I couldn't ask the landlord about it. We did end up in this location at their request. And we
Okay.
did actually already get him to agree to come a little bit further away from the wetlands. But I will certainly ask him again if he's willing to give a little bit more space based on these concerns.
okay. And how soon can a balloon test be arranged?
It depends on their schedule, but I would say probably within a few weeks, we could get one scheduled.
Okay, so you can work with Sue on that.
Okay, and would this be advertised in the paper? How would
You know what I would do? We should let the abutters know, because they're the most impacted by it, so they're gonna wanna know when it's happening.
Yep.
Is it required to be advertised as a legal ad?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I thought the advertisement for this meeting would cover it.
I would think it would cover it, but
Different towns have different policies on that.
But since it's specific to that issue and, you know, how the visual would be, I would recommend strongly that we let the abutters know when it's going to happen so that they can participate.
Okay. And typically, these are scheduled with with a morning or an afternoon on a certain date, and then a rain date or snow
Yep.
date, just in case, just so there would be a primary date and then the secondary date, and we can make that known to people.
Okay. All right. Anything else before I accept a motion to continue the public hearing? All right. I'm calling for a motion to continue the public hearing.
Oh, I'd like to make a motion to continue the public hearing for the Verizon Tower on 720 Washington Street.
And what dates do we have available?
And that would be,
December 2nd and January 6th.
Okay, what works, December 2nd, January 6th, what works for you? I don't know if you had to say it.
She's suggesting going to
January
January.
6th.
December's a tight time
Okay.
to turn this around, so.
Yep. Okay, so we have a motion on the table to continue the public hearing until January 6th, 2025. Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I will be back to my cruise.
All right, so next on the agenda is a discussion of vote whether to endorse approval not required Form A application for property at 351 West Elm Street, Assessors Map B13, Lot 14, transfer of 17,877 square feet to 16 Summer Path Way, Assessors Map B13, Lot 17B.
Joe Webby Engineering, and I'm here to represent the Dodge family. Currently, they live at 351 West Elm Street, but they would like to convey parcel A, about 17,877 feet, to this parcel at 16 Summer Path. And that would leave us with 201 feet of frontage and 96,000 plus square feet.
So both lots will remain conforming. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We start out with 2 lots, we end up with 2 lots. No additional lots are being created as part of this Form A. All right, what do you want to do?
I propose we accept the Form A as provided.
All right, so we have a motion to endorse the Form A and R. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Thank you for coming in. We're gonna sign off on something?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Can I take that my little tree now?
Yep.
Yeah,
Thanks, Joe.
yeah, just give us a second. We don't have much more to do. So Sue, do you have anything else on the agenda for us? Or any routine administrative?
The only thing is just the planning.
Oh, the calendar.
The calendar.
Sure.
Wanted everybody to take a look at that. corrections?
You're green.
Yes, you're green.
Hawaii.
Well, we all know that you can do a remote meeting from Hawaii.
Yeah, yeah.
I tried to hit on my nest.
Let's see, Switzerland, Hawaii. Yeah, it's interrupting with my travel plans, but I can do it.
Looks good to
We
me.
seem light in the summer though, July, huh? Only one meeting.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me too.
Yeah, I just did that for vacations and so forth.
There's a couple weeks, a couple months that are 2 weeks apart.
You
Yeah,
slackers.
it all depends on, like, the holiday
Holidays,
schedule. I
Yeah.
tried for the second and the fourth week of every month.
Gotcha. Well, that looks good to me.
Yeah, that looks good. I don't think there's any board action required.
Okay.
So,
And then minutes, and then the only other thing is Mylar copy, signature, everybody but Heather or North River Community Church.
okay.
And that's all I got.
So you have the minutes before you of,
October 7th.
Monday, October 7th, 2024.
I propose to make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from October 7th as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Did you second that?
Yes.
That's okay.
All right, all business has been done, all board action taken.
I make a motion to close this meeting.
All right, I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you.
Sorry, I was cutting you off there.